Alright guys, welcome back to the City Cost Japan YouTube channel. For our latest video, we're talking all things travel in Japan during the coronavirus pandemic and what the travel industry might look like in the future for this country. To help us get through all this, I sat down with our friend Lacey, who works, amongst other things, as a travel consultant here in Japan. It was really great talking to Lacey. She's insightful, eloquent, has loads of interesting things to say about travel in Japan and the industry as a whole, which we hope can help you make informative decisions about whether or not you want to travel at this time and into the future. Anyway, once again, really enjoyed speaking with Lacey. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, give it a like, give it a share. Thanks for your continued support of the City Cost Japan YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to it somewhere down there. In the meantime, let's get on and enjoy this video. Okay, so Lacey, thank you for joining us today for this interview.
Thank you very much.
So a few weeks ago, we had some contact about the prospect of writing an article for City Cost. And the article was based on a trip that you took to, it was Hiroshima, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you went to Hiroshima during the summer. And you wrote an article for us on City Cost. We'll put the link to that article in the description below this video so people can check that out. So I guess, Lacey, I'd like to start by asking simply, could you sort of tell us what it is you were doing in Hiroshima?
Yes. So I went to Hiroshima in August for 5 days for work, actually. I work as a travel consultant. So basically what I did was I went to meet some of our customers and to actually try some of the experiences that they have. So a yukata experience, canoeing, all kinds of different, or not canoeing, kayaking, all kinds of different experiences to give them feedback on what they can improve to get more foreign customers.
Okay, so when you say customers or clients, you're talking about, are we talking about large businesses, small businesses here that are aimed at providing activities, attractions for tourists? Is that right?
Yes, so they're mostly smaller businesses. A lot of times they don't know how to either get more foreigners, or they lack the English ability or the skills to partner with big websites like booking.com, various ways to actually sell the plans that they want to make.
Okay.
So we're kind of that bridge for them.
Yeah. Okay, I see. And this was during the summer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, one of the reasons why we were particularly interested in you writing this article about your trip was that this would be a chance to kind of explore the experience of traveling during this time of, as the article is entitled, COVID-19. So we were interested in kind of virus prevention measures you encountered, and what was the mood when you're sort of traveling from your home, your place, your home, long distance to another part of the country. How would you be welcomed? That kind of thing. Because I know that since the state of emergency ended at the end of May, and obviously from the central government, there's been lots of, they were building up to this go-to travel campaign. And on like social media, there was very much, as is typical of social media, I guess, opinions were sort of polarized on whether traveling was a good idea at this time or not. Was it going to help support local businesses, or was it just going to further spread the virus? So I guess I wanted to ask you, and in fact, you, again, in your article, you detailed that you were in Hiroshima giving advice about the business's virus prevention measures. Is that right?
Yes. So, of course, I look at very many different parts of the business, but especially with the current situation, that's one of the most important things, because they're trying to get money now, and if they don't support that well, it's just not going to work out well for them. Yeah,
exactly. Sure. Yeah. So, can you tell us then what kind of virus prevention measures did you see that these businesses, or not just these businesses, but all throughout your trip, what kind of virus prevention measures did you encounter?
So it really varied from place to place on what kind of prevention measures they had available and how much time and energy they were putting into it. Some of the customers that impressed me the most, they went as far as to, like, for the outdoor activities, wearing a mask in Japanese August is quite terrible for a cycling experience. So they had one of the plastic ones that made breathing a little easier.
Right.
As soon as you walk in the door, they make sure that you have your hand sanitized and take your temperature, write all your information down, so that if something were to happen, if someone came into contact with someone who was infected, they would be able to contact everyone else.
Yeah.
Just prevention. So I think as a general, most places had people, everyone, staff and customers wearing masks and hand sanitizers. But for many businesses, that's where it seemed to stop. And part of it was a lack of, everyone saying virus prevention. But for places that aren't restaurants, the government hasn't really given a ton of guidance on how to do that while still running the business.
Okay, I see. So in terms of that, well, let me just come back to that in a minute. But obviously, you giving advice to anybody can sometimes be a sort of, it can sometimes be accepted. Some people can sort of reject it, or whatever, in whatever the case might be. I mean, how did you find that? How did you find it actually giving advice on this sort of thing? Was it an awkward moment for you, or was it okay?
So it helped out that I had I had a senpai with me who was Japanese, who was able to make sure.
Can we stop there and explain to people what a senpai might be?
One of my higher level colleagues with me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Who in my company, each Japanese staff has their own territory. And so they have a very long relationship with each of the customers. So having him with me, even though it was my first time to meet him, they trust him. So in turn, they trust me because we come as a pair.
Right. Okay. So there was already like a relationship that had been built up there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So so you mentioned that perhaps those businesses that sort of just stopped at like hand sanitization and wearing of face masks, perhaps they weren't able to get their hands on information from the central government. Is that something that they kind of expressed to you?
It's just like they didn't necessarily say we didn't get the information from the government. More of, we know we should do more, but we don't know what that means.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Now you mentioned in your article actually that some of the businesses were kind of, well, okay, let me just put it this way then. You say that they know they need to do more. Was there a sort of motivation? Did you get the sense that they were motivated to do more?
I think most places, of course, there's going to be the people that feel like, no matter what I do, foreigners aren't coming right now. So there's just no option. Like, it doesn't matter. But I think most of the customers were very open to the ideas. And in general, because I was one of the first foreigners that many of them have seen in a long time, they were really happy about that.
Right. And you sound like you're saying you visited the Amazon jungle or something, but yeah.
But I think they tend to forget that there's still foreigners that do live in Japan, and maybe we're getting a little bored and we want to go somewhere too if it's safe. Yeah.
Actually, this is since you brought it up, actually, but it's going off on a bit of a tangent. But obviously, both you and I work. Well, you more than me, I guess, but we both work in the tourism industry to a certain extent in Japan. And one thing that had sort of concerned me, but it had made me wonder with the outbreak of the coronavirus is to what extent all of this kind of effort to communicate to tourists and foreigners in Japan in languages that they can understand, in signage that they can understand, in services that they can understand. How much was that based purely on the fact that the Olympics is coming? And now that the Olympics has been sort of put to one side for the time being, one of my concerns was, oh, okay, so are they just going to sort of ditch all of this foreigner support because essentially it was all aimed at inbound tourists, not the people who are actually sort of living here and paying taxes and doing all the rest of it. and I've yet to actually. I'm still not sure about that, but I don't know. As somebody who works kind of in this industry, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I still like, as a whole, even for the customers that we're consulting with, they are trying to look towards the foreigners and remember, hey, foreigners live here.
Right.
And they are trying to gear towards Japanese people that also live in Japan. So that is kind of a worry, but I think that they're going to always find that inbound customers are always willing to pay more because, they've been working for their trip for so long. And because of the population's aging, if they don't kind of look outwards to support the income, that it's not really, maybe in the short term, they might forget, hey, we need foreigners, but eventually they'll have to go back to it anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of reassuring to hear.
That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah. No, I think that sounds like a sensible opinion. I think. Yeah. Okay, then. So let's go back to Hiroshima and kind of, I don't know, taking your work hat off for a minute. Just as a traveler, for example, I wanted to ask you. These measures that you encountered, these antivirus measures that you encountered, whatever the mood that you encountered as well. I wanted to ask like how that's affected your trip. I know you were there for work, but I mean, for example, just to sort of, we went to Nagasaki in September for what was essentially a work trip, but it did kind of have the feeling of tourism as well, because we were just sort of going around, we were traveling around the area a lot and taking pictures and stuff, and this was my first trip, at least my first trip anyway, outside of the Tokyo area since the outbreak of the virus. So I wouldn't say I was worried as such, but it was work, so I didn't really have any choice anyway. So, yeah. But I was curious to see like, what's the mood going to be like? Is it going to be this sort of dystopian thing with like people in white coats standing by ready to take me away, if my temperature was too high or something like that? But yeah, so as it turned out, I kind of, we encountered many virus prevention measures, but I have to say it didn't in any way spoil my trip. So how about you, Lacey? What did you think?
Yeah, so I have to say too, before I actually went on this work trip, it was my first big work trip, and honestly my first big trip since coronavirus has really hit. For the first few months, I was scared because, you heard what else was going on in the world. So I stayed home a lot in the countryside of Gifu. Right. And so to kind of leave that was a little intimidating, but again, it's work. And, after being home for so long, there's also the excitement of I finally get to leave my house.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so once I got there, none of the virus prevention measures hindered anything. I mean, a mask when it's hot can be a little irritating, but like you survive, you get used to it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. That's good to hear then. And I should say, just going back to, a mask in summer, but just going back to your bicycle thing, you said you were wearing like a plastic type face mask. Yeah. So just to sort of clarify to people, if you watch Japanese TV at the moment, you can see all the celebrities wearing like this kind of, I don't know, if people have been on a trip to Japan before, they might have gone to like a sushi restaurant and seen like the sushi chefs wearing this kind of plastic kind of, I guess like visor really that goes in front of your mouth. And that's what you were wearing on the cycling activity.
Yes. So it was really nice. The guide and the company was very aware of Japanese heat and how hard that can be on people in general without a mask. So, I mean, the tour was like a 3-hour outside cycling tour. So when I came in, my tour guide gave me the mask and said, use this one. It's much cooler.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So Lacey, obviously you encountered and saw what businesses were doing in terms of virus prevention. And as though we discussed, like, it didn't spoil your trip. And basically what I was angling at with that was, like, in my sense, did it create some sort of weird authoritarian kind of sci-fi kind of atmosphere? And obviously that bit was okay. But did it actually work to reassure you in terms of, making you feel comfortable to travel or experience new things or go to a different place?
Absolutely. So, especially since it was my first big trip since the virus has really hit Japan, of course, there were nerves. But after seeing how much effort they were putting into it, and of course, there weren't as many travelers out because no one's coming from overseas, and a lot of people still are a little nervous about being out. So, any group I was in was already really small. And then you add the masks, the temperature taking, the sanitization.
The sanitizers. What are the sanitizers? Some sort of weird taser thing going on. That sounds scary. Yeah. Sorry. No. The sanitization, hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer. Yeah. Adding the hand sanitizer and all of those things together, it does make you feel a lot safer. They're making sure that they're doing what they can. And that being said, of course, not every experience is doing this equally. So, it's important to do the research to figure out what you're comfortable with and decide what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said research there then, just staying on that. People might want to do some research then before they go and take a trip.
Yes.
Are they going to be able to... Are the resources there, do you think, for them to research this sort of stuff? I mean, is there enough information about this for foreigners, do you think?
I think it's a growing thing now that businesses are realizing that the targets they have left are Japanese people or foreigners that currently live in Japan, and they have to cater and make those customers feel comfortable and make sure they have the information. I've been going to lots of online seminars that are made for the customers that we serve, the different businesses, saying, on SNS, show your prevention measures. Let people know you're open. Let people know what you're doing to keep them safe. And so there are businesses that are really trying to cater for the people that are still nervous and still scared.
Again, just through sort of social media, talking to different people, I mean, obviously the reaction to this virus, understandably, comes in a whole sort of spectrum of forms from one extreme to the other. And I mean, just my stance on this is not really the point, and I'm not really necessarily wanting to project my stance or the city cost stance on this sort of thing, but there are, I mean, personally, I mean, I don't mind. I'm happy. Yeah, I mean, I would travel, take all the precautions, do the research, that kind of thing. But I mean, what would you say, based on your experience so far, to people who kind of want to travel, let's say, but they're scared, or they're not sure if they should, or they're not sure what to expect? What might you say to them?
I think there's something there for everyone. So for the people that are still nervous but do want to travel, they can look into smaller cities. Don't go to Tokyo. Maybe choose Gifu, or choose the countryside, or an outdoor activity to where it is open air, or maybe choose a private group so you don't have people that you don't know other than the tour guide with you. And do your research, see what people are reviewing, see what the business is posting about the prevention measures, and just really decide, what's important to you. What does the business need to do to make you feel comfortable? And there's bound to be at least one to fit that.
Also, I mean, obviously, as we're talking about this, and you went on your trip in the summer, which would have been sort of shortly after, I think, the Go-To campaign started outside of Tokyo. And then Tokyo joined in on the action October, I think. Your thoughts on the Go-To campaign, very quickly?
From a personal perspective, I love that hotels are much cheaper now.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's always a bonus, and it does make it a lot easier. And they're trying to widen it more to where it includes not just hotels, because it's only one part of travel.
Yeah.
And I do think it's good to an extent, but, when it started, I was also concerned too. But I understand from this perspective after talking to the businesses, because a lot of the people I work with, they're little mom and pop shops with people who are really struggling and trying really hard. So I think it's a way to travel during this era. If you're keeping precautions, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, because I've used the Go-To campaign in the interest of honesty. And one of the things that we did, was stayed in a hotel that we wouldn't normally have stayed in. It was normally sort of right out of our budget. And that's fine. I think fair enough. People want to do that. And but I think there has been voices of concern that the Go-To campaign isn't reaching, as you sort of picked up on, isn't reaching like the smaller businesses. And as somebody in your article, you mentioned that your clients are often these smaller businesses. I mean, does that concern you in relation to the Go-To campaign? Do you think they're going to get enough out of it, if they're going to use it at all?
I think if the businesses that I work with, if they really target their audiences as well, that they could reach it. But right now, a lot of people are still focused on that, coming from abroad, maybe first, second, third time in Japan, they're there to do the experiences. Whereas if you live in Japan, maybe you're not going to look up a yukata experience, or maybe you're not going to look up a cooking class. And so I think the fact that there's not enough campaigns to help them to make, because when you live in Japan, you're not going to spend the same amount of money as someone who's traveling. It's just typically. So I do, wish that they would make more of a campaign to help those smaller businesses, because I do think it's, the hotels can get loans, the big businesses can get loans, and, they have more support than a smaller business,
I think I kind of daren't say this because I don't know, it sounds like a controversial thing to say, I don't know. But if there is any sort of good that might have come out of this coronavirus, it's that it might, and this is not just me talking, this is industry people have been saying this for some time now, that it might have actually helped to address this kind of over-tourism problem that Japan has been having in recent years, particularly in places like Kyoto and parts of Tokyo, and the sort of marquee spots. We went to Kyoto in September with the I say we. This is my private time. This is not on city cost money. We went to Kyoto for a couple of nights, and it was my first time in Kyoto for a few years actually. I remember the last time that I was there, probably 2 years ago maybe. And I was walking around Gion, and I did think, wow, it's so crowded. I mean, it's just a free for all. It's just chaos. But when we went there in September, we went to the Bamboo Grove in Arashiyama, and managed to get a couple of shots. We went there early, to be fair, and managed to get a couple of shots of the Bamboo Grove with just one or two people in them. We also went to Fushimi Inari Jinja, which is, for those people who don't know, it's like this insta-buy sort of spot with I don't know if there's literally 1,000 of these vermilion torii gates, but there's a long row of them, and people like to sort of take pictures of them. And I think it was a rare opportunity to get a picture of that with nobody in front of me. A whole bunch of people behind me waiting to do the same thing. But I gather that this is a very hard thing to do. So I'm wondering, this, as somebody who kind of works in the industry, there's this kind of, I guess, I don't know, sort of dichotomy between, we're losing customers, but at the same time, not necessarily you losing customers, but the industry is losing customers. But at the same time, places like Kyoto are kind of, local opinion seems to be that they're not enjoying, but they're quite happy about the way things have quietened down a little bit. Can I get your thoughts on that, Lacey?
I do think it's good that over-tourism is kind of taking a break. And even in the seminars that I've been attending, in the industry, they're talking about, now that we have the time, it's forced time, but time to think about, where to keep pushing and where to keep moving. It's really towards the sustainable tourism, because it's a source of money that Japan's going to continue to need as the population keeps aging. And so really looking at how you can push for that tourism, but push for the tourism that still protects the culture and the surroundings and the people living in the areas. And I think as a whole, even the people that are still remaining in Japan, because as a whole, a lot of people are still scared of the big cities, it's really pushing people to think about the other places that Japan has. And there's a lot of awesome places to go see. And I think it's nice that people are kind of forced to notice them, because I really enjoy them.
Right, okay.
It's a selfish opinion.
No,
but...
that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Sustainable tourism. Sorry, that can you? I mean, that's obviously a term that gets sort of thrown around every now and then. And can you explain what that means a little bit?
Yeah, so it's developing tourism in a way that doesn't damage or, the people or their surroundings or just the city as a whole. And so a lot of what I've been hearing in the seminars and, what my company is trying to push for is, instead of the number of customers, it's having quality customers. So when you have a customer come, that it's not just one place that's getting all of the money and they're going to pay for a hotel and then that's it. It's that they shop and do different things throughout their time there to make it a quality experience where the money really flows through it to everyone.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm glad you sort of mentioned that, because this was back in, this is before the whole Corona thing kicked off. This was back in late January, February. We went to Fukushima Prefecture to Aizu Wakamatsu, and we were doing like a press tour there. And we were in this, it was some kind of museum that had been refurbished and kind of revitalized recently. And the guy showing us around was a real character, real sort of strong, but really funny character. And so he showed us around, and then, I thought, well, I'd better ask him a question. I'm sort of got my journalist hat on, so I better ask him something. And so I said, well, since the renewal open, as they would say in Japanese, since it had been opened again, what kind of numbers had come, had many people come to visit. And he kind of looked at me like he was this real no-nonsense kind of guy. And he looked at me like, what are you asking that for? That's not the point. And he sort of said, yeah, well, it's to preserve our heritage and to showcase our heritage. And the sort of the gaping thing that he didn't say was that we don't care about the numbers. I'm sure he cared about the numbers to a certain extent, but that wasn't the point. And we went on to talk a little bit, and he also expressed his concern about, I don't know, a decade ago, Japan had maybe, 6 million visitors a year or something. And now in sort of 2020, they were trying to get like 40 million in a year. And he was questioning whether or not it was being done the right way. So I guess this kind of goes back to your what you said about the sustainable tourism model.
Yeah.
So Lacey, if it's okay, if we dare, can we let's speculate about the future a little bit? It's obviously kind of hard to really understand what that's going to be like for the tourism industry, not just in Japan but everywhere, I guess. And I know that, from personal experience, a lot of people. In fact, I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but it's kind of hard you can't underestimate how much people were looking forward to the Olympics here in Japan, I think. Not just on a sort of personal point of view, but from like an industry, money-making, job-creating point of view. I knew the Olympics was this huge sort of massive circus, but it's my first time to actually be in a country that is going to hold it. And it came as quite a surprise to me just how big a deal it is. And with that kind of the uncertainty as to what kind of form the Olympics is going to take, I think it would be interesting if we could talk a little bit about the future of travel within Japan. I guess first things first then is the workation concept. Now, this is something that I've come across kind of this year, really. We were invited to go down to Tokushima to sort of sample the workation lifestyle, I guess. And for those that can't tell already, workation is an amalgamation of work and vacation. So, and the idea is, well, I'm not exactly clear on the idea, to be honest with you, but you go somewhere rural and you do a bit of work and you relax, or you relax and do a little bit of work. I'm not sure about the balance of it, really. But I think it sort of ties in anyway to this, to obviously with the pandemic, people were working remotely. So I think that there are certain groups, certain organizations in Japan that are, looking to promote this workation concept. Let's go out to the countryside, do a bit of work, relax, that kind of thing. Have you got any experience with this? Have you come across this term at all?
Yes, so actually my company CEO, when we all first started working remote, well, when I joined the company and everyone else started working remote, I just was already remote.
You just went, yeah.
He basically, he was encouraging, he always wants us to keep the mindset of a traveler so that when we consult, we can refer back to that. And he was like, I want all of you, feel free to go on a workation. And some of my coworkers actually did. So you would notice in the morning meetings, you'd see the new background and be like, where are you today?
Okay, wow.
I think for the big Japanese companies that it's going to be very, very, very hard to reach them because there's that mindset of everyone has to do the same amount of suffering together.
All right, yeah, sure.
Everyone should suffer together.
Yeah.
And so I feel, a lot of people might feel the pressure of, oh, I want to, but I can't, or I don't know if my boss is going to be okay with this. For the big companies. My company, I said it was okay with it, but we're a very small venture company and my CEO is 39. So very flexible mindset. It's really nice, but I do feel like, maybe the smaller companies, it might fly, or if everyone does it together. But for the bigger companies, I've even heard my friends talking to me, they work from home, but they have to leave their webcam on the entire time so that the boss can still make sure they're working because there's still trust.
Right.
So I feel like for those, it's going to be kind of a stretch.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I kind of agree with that, really. I mean, I kind of like the idea of, let's get out of the city and work in a more sort of favorable, healthy environment. I like that very much. But my feeling is that, and I don't know if this is just me actually, but I don't know. I want the two to kind of be separate, maybe. If I want to go on vacation, I want to go on a vacation. And I don't want work comes into my vacation anyway. So ostensibly, I've been doing a workation for a few years now. But I'd kind of like to keep the two separate. But maybe there's some avenue that they can pursue with the need the need, I guess, to do remote work at the moment. Maybe that's something that can help it take off. But okay, so I mean, some people are sort of trending in that direction. As for you, Lacey, do you see any other sort of trends or kind of hot destinations that might emerge? Once this is I guess it's not going to be over for a long time, but once things clear up a little bit and people feel more at ease to travel.
I still think even after the virus ends that people will still be looking towards the outdoor and maybe a little more away from the city now that people have kind of opened their eyes to, there's other places in the city and noticing that those places are really nice. And, there still might be that fear of the virus or of a different kind of virus because, there's always the flu and all of these other things that are always, who knows when another virus will hit and there may be that fear. So I do think that people will still be looking a little away from the cities. And I personally work a lot in the Tokai area. So that's Gifu, Aichi, Mie, and Shizuoka.
Yeah.
And Nagoya has been pushing really hard because even though it's one of the larger cities, it's not really looked at from a tourist or tourism perspective. So they've even got this new site called Nagoya is Not Boring.
Oh, right. Okay. Wow.
Very direct.
Yeah.
But they're pushing really hard to say, we're a fun city too. And because it's not such a large city, I think they might come out a little bit stronger. And aside from that, just personally, I went on a work trip recently to Shikoku, to Kagawa.
Oh, yeah.
And there's lots of different islands and it's outside. It's got a lot of beautiful nature. So I feel like places like that will really be popular. And I personally enjoyed that a lot.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because we did just on City Cost at the sort of turn of the year, we did like a kind of poll and a piece about sort of popular hot destinations in 2020, which obviously it's probably all gone out the window now. But I think I got it in front of me here, I think. So where was it? I think one of the popular destinations, it was Hokkaido that came out top on our little poll, followed by Kyoto, Okinawa, Kagoshima, and Shizuoka, which rounded out the sort of top 5 on our list. In that piece, we also we sort of gave a shout out to Kochi Prefecture in Shikoku. So just personally, that was so beautiful. And if you're looking to sort of see, I would say dramatic kind of natural scenery, rugged mountains, wild rivers, forests, I thought Kochi was really stunning. I thought, yeah. What about, you also mentioned Gifu. I'll give you this opportunity, Lacey, if you want to sort of give a plug to Gifu, because I'm not entirely sure I've ever been to Gifu, actually. So perhaps you could explain to us what's to see and do in Gifu, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So not even from a work perspective, but from a personal perspective, I've always loved Gifu. I've lived there for 3 years. And so a lot of people, when they think of Gifu, they think of Shirakawa-go or Takayama.
Oh, okay.
So Shirakawa-go has the really old houses, and they've been preserved really well. And it's a really great spot for photos. It looks really, really awesome in the snow. Mm-hmm. And then Takayama's kind of like, I want to say it's like a mini Kyoto almost. So, you've got less, it's not as much traffic. So, you can take some nice photos. It doesn't feel quite as like, that big push of touristy. Like, of course, it's still a touristy place, but not with as many travelers. But I personally enjoy the very, very small countryside a lot more. So there's smaller cities like Seki, which is known for its blade making. And they've got some really beautiful mountains and flowers. Their hydrangeas in the summer are really, really beautiful. And some other cities too. There's a big city not a big city for Gifu called Gujo, which I actually like. It's known as the water city because it's up in the mountains and they've got a lot of streams. In the summer, the boys, of course, I wouldn't recommend it for foreigners, but it's fun to watch. The young boys will jump from the bridges into the river.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. And then they're also known for their bond dancing. So in August, which didn't happen this year, I was quite disappointed. But in August, they'll have bond dancing festival and they dance all night long.
Right, okay. So, can you explain what the bond dance might be, just very briefly?
Yeah, so it's a traditional Japanese dancing that they do at festivals where a lot of times they'll have a Japanese drum and someone playing it and just the dancing, and they'll go walking around in a circle doing traditional dance moves. This is my impression of it.
Right, okay, yeah. Expressed perfectly, yeah. Well, I got it, yeah. Okay, so just to kind of... To wrap things up, I feel like I could just keep talking for a long time about this actually, but I guess I'd like to end, because obviously this is it's a difficult time, and I think we sort of are looking for messages of hope, signs of hope. I personally believe, and I think probably most people do, that this is going to get better. Things are going to get better. But as somebody just speaking from the perspective of the travel industry, and not just the industry, but the ability to actually travel and enjoy Japan and have fun in Japan and experience different things, go to different places. Can you end us on a positive note, Lacey? Do you feel positive about the future despite the challenges that are obviously lie in wait?
I do. So, if you look at the polls and, the people that are doing the research, the desire to travel is still there, and that'll never go away. I don't believe that will ever go away. And so I do feel like, for the people living in Japan, as businesses ramp up their prevention measures and as people start to feel that trust again, that'll improve. But not only that, I feel like once, the vaccine comes out or coronavirus goes away or whatever happens, once it ends, that, you know, the floodgates are going to open and people are going to be like, yes, we can finally go. And that it's just going to be the travel boom is what I personally feel, because I'm going to be the same.
Okay, right. So Lacey, yeah, let's end it there on that sentiment. Thank you very much, Lacey. Thanks for joining us. And hopefully we'll have the chance to speak again in the future, perhaps when things are booming again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So there you have it, guys. Thanks again for watching this video. Thanks so much for Lacey to taking the time to talk with us. We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it. Once again, you can find Lacey's article on the City Cost Japan website. We'll put the link to that article in the description below this video. Thanks for your continued support of the City Cost Japan YouTube channel. Hope you've subscribed to it. If not, what are you doing? The button's down there somewhere. Get on it. Like this video, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.